The morning sun slipped through the thin curtains, painting streaks of gold across my bedroom wall. I lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, the quiet hum of the ceiling fan filling the silence. My heart fluttered with a strange mix of excitement and anxiety. Today was supposed to be special. It was our 5th wedding anniversary. 5 years of laughter, tears, growth, and struggle. 5 years since Ethan and I promised each other that no matter how hard life got, we'd always hold on. I'd spent the entire week preparing for today. I made a list, checked it twice, and made sure every little detail felt meaningful. The dinner menu, the playlist of songs from our wedding night, and the wine glasses that still had tiny etchings of our initials. I'd even convinced myself it would be nice to invite my parents and siblings. Maybe it would remind them that love didn't need grand gestures, just presence. But as I lay in bed, my phone screen glowed silently on the nightstand. No messages, no calls. No happy anniversary from Mom, or even a lazy emoji from my sister Lily. Usually, Mom was the first to text about everything: birthdays, engagements, even random holidays that didn't matter. But today? Nothing. I told myself it was still early. Maybe they were planning a surprise. Maybe Ethan had told them to play along. My heart clung to that hope like a child clutching a broken toy. By mid-morning, I was busy in the kitchen. The smell of roasted garlic and butter filled the air, the sound of soft jazz humming from the Bluetooth speaker. Every move I made carried meaning. The tablecloth I ironed until it was spotless. The candles I'd bought last month but saved for tonight. The bouquet of red and white roses placed perfectly in the center. But as the hours passed, the silence grew heavier. No knock on the door, no car pulling up the driveway. I glanced at my phone again. Still nothing. Finally, I dialed my mother. The phone rang longer than usual before she answered. "Oh, honey. I'm so sorry. I was just in the middle of something," she said, her tone distracted, rushed. I smiled weakly, even though she couldn't see me. "Hi, Mom. Just wanted to check in. You remember what day it is, right?" There was a pause followed by a nervous laugh. "Oh, that's today? Your anniversary, right? My goodness, time flies. I've just been so busy helping Lily with her engagement dinner plans. You know how these things are?" Her voice was airy, like she was brushing away a minor inconvenience. But to me, it landed like a dagger. Lily's engagement dinner is next month. There was no reason she had to be busy today. "Oh, I see," I replied softly. "Well, I thought maybe you could come by tonight. Just for a small dinner. I've already cooked." "Oh, honey, that's sweet," she said, her tone shifting into that familiar mix of guilt and avoidance. "But your dad's exhausted from work, and your brother, well, he's out with his friends. We'll celebrate another time, okay?" I felt the words catch in my throat. "Sure, another time." After hanging up, I just stood there, staring at the phone in my hand as if it had betrayed me. My heart sank deeper with every minute that passed. I glanced at the clock. It was already 3 p.m. Maybe I was foolish for thinking they'd care. This wasn't new. They'd always found ways to remind me that I wasn't their priority. When Lily graduated, they threw her a huge party. When I did, they said, "It's just a piece of paper." When my brother got a promotion, they called him the pride of the family. When I got one, they said, "Don't let it get to your head." I tried to shake it off. Today was about Ethan and me, not them. I looked around the house, our home. It was small but filled with memories. The walls held laughter from nights we stayed up talking until dawn. The dining table carried the ghosts of quiet dinners after long days. And yet, in that moment, it felt hollow. When evening rolled around, I changed into the soft blue dress Ethan loved, the one with the lace trim and open back. I lit the candles, turned down the lights, and waited. The smell of rosemary chicken and baked potatoes filled the air, mixing with the faint sweetness of vanilla wax, but time stretched endlessly. The clock ticked past 6 cow, then 7 tau. Still, no sign of Ethan. My chest tightened as I stared at the untouched meal. Maybe he was stuck in traffic. Maybe he forgot. The same silence that filled my family's absence now echoed through the house. At Adabai, I finally heard the crunch of gravel in the driveway. Relief washed over me, and then guilt for feeling relieved at something so small. I quickly wiped my eyes and tried to smile. The door opened quietly. Ethan stepped inside, his shirt slightly wrinkled, his face unreadable. His hands were behind his back, and he looked at me with a softness that made my heart ache. "Hey," I said, trying to sound cheerful. "You're late." "I know," he said, his voice calm but serious. "I had something to take care of." He looked around the room, noticing the candles, the dinner, and the untouched plates. "They didn't come, did they?" I shook my head, forcing a small smile. "They said they were busy, again." Ethan sighed, walked over, and gently cupped my cheek. "I'm sorry, Anna. You don't deserve that." I felt tears sting my eyes. "It's fine. I'm used to it." He looked at me for a long moment, the kind of look that says he sees through every lie you tell yourself. Then he smiled faintly and said, "I have something for you." He reached behind his back and handed me a white envelope. It was thin, elegant, and sealed with a faint gold stamp. "What's this?" I asked. "Just open it," he said softly. I tore it open, my hands trembling. Inside was a single sheet of paper, crisp, official, and heavy with significance. My name was printed in bold black letters, followed by the words, "Property Ownership Deed." I blinked, confused. "Ethan, what is this?" He smiled, eyes glistening with quiet pride. "It's ours. The house. I finished the paperwork today. It's under your name now." I stared at him, speechless. The candlelight flickered across his face, painting him in gold. You bought the house? In my name?" He nodded. "You've spent years giving everything to people who never gave back. Your family, your job, even me at times. I wanted to give you something that no one could take away. Something that's yours, forever." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My throat tightened, my hands shook, and the tears I'd been holding back all day finally spilled over. "Ethan, I don't even know what to say. Say you'll stop trying to earn their love," he whispered. "Say you'll start living for you." I looked at the deed again, my name gleaming under the soft light. It wasn't just a piece of paper, it was freedom. A promise, a declaration that I mattered, even when others made me feel invisible. We sat down for dinner, and though the food had grown cold, it was the warmest meal I'd ever shared. We talked about the future, about dreams that once felt too far away. He told me how long he'd been planning this surprise, how he'd been secretly saving for months. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked between bites. "Because I wanted today to mean something," he said. "Even if they forgot, I wanted you to remember that you're not alone. That you're loved. Truly loved." As the night deepened, the candles melted low, and soft music filled the background. I rested my head on his shoulder. For the first time in a long time, I felt peace. Not because of the gift, but because someone finally saw me, not as a daughter overshadowed by others, but as a woman worthy of love and respect. Later that night, when Ethan went to bed, I sat by the window, watching the moonlight spill across the deed resting on the table. I thought about my mother's words. "We'll celebrate another time. Another time never came." And that was okay, because this time I didn't need them to. I folded the deed carefully, placed it back in the envelope, and whispered to myself, "They may have ignored our anniversary, but he remembered what mattered." It wasn't just an anniversary anymore. It was a quiet revolution, the night I stopped begging for love and started recognizing my own worth. And as I turned off the lights and joined Ethan in bed, I knew something inside me had changed forever. The morning after our anniversary felt strangely peaceful. Sunlight poured across the kitchen tiles, catching the edge of the house deed envelope that still lay on the counter. Every time my eyes drifted to it, I felt a small surge of strength. It wasn't just paper. It was proof that I could no longer be erased, proof that someone believed in me when my own blood refused to. Yet the ache of yesterday still lingered. Even though Ethan's gesture had mended something deep inside me, the wound my family left behind throbbed quietly beneath the surface. By instinct, I picked up my phone and called my mother. Part habit, part hope. She answered on the third ring, her voice annoyingly cheerful, like nothing had happened. "Oh, good morning, sweetheart. Did you sleep well?" I hesitated. I did. "Did you remember what yesterday was?" There was a pause, brief but heavy. Then came the same empty chuckle that had haunted most of my adult life. "Oh, that's right. Your anniversary." "I completely forgot, darling. You know how busy we are these days. Between your father's work and Lily's engagement planning, my mind's been all over the place. Busy. That word again. The shield she always used to deflect guilt." I smiled tightly, though she couldn't see it. "It's okay, Mom. You were busy." "Well, we'll celebrate another time," she said, breezy as ever. "Maybe after Lily's engagement dinner, "Sure," I said softly. "Another time." When I hung up, the silence in the house felt deeper than before. I looked around, at the half-burnt candles from last night, at the plates we never used for guests, at the fading roses on the table. It wasn't anger I felt anymore. It was clarity. That was the moment I made a quiet decision. If my family could ignore me on the happiest day of my marriage, they didn't deserve to be part of my future ones. Over the next few days, Ethan and I focused on the new house. We spent hours painting walls, laughing when the paint rollers splattered across our clothes. We arranged furniture, picked curtains, and planted tiny rose bushes by the front porch. It wasn't a mansion, it was modest, cozy, and real. Every room carried the smell of fresh paint and new beginnings. Still, there were moments when guilt tried to sneak in. Part of me wanted to tell my mother, to share the joy. But then I remembered the tone in her voice when she said busy, and that guilt dissolved into quiet defiance. A week later, just when peace had started to settle in, my phone buzzed. It was Mom again. "Sweetheart," she said, her tone overly sweet, the kind she used whenever she wanted something. "We're having a family dinner on Saturday. Everyone's coming, your father, Lily, her fiancé, even Daniel. You and Ethan should come too." I hesitated. "A family dinner?" "Yes, dear. We haven't seen you in ages," she said lightly. "And Lily wants to talk about some engagement details. You know, family stuff. Family stuff." The phrase almost made me laugh. But Ethan, standing across the kitchen, mouthed go. His eyes were gentle but firm. "Maybe you need closure," he said quietly. So I agreed. Saturday evening came draped in that familiar mix of dread and anticipation. I dressed simply. A cream blouse, dark jeans, my hair tied back. I wanted to look composed, not perform. Ethan looked effortlessly calm beside me as we drove, his hand resting over mine the entire way. My parents' house looked the same as ever, perfect on the outside, hollow on the inside. A manicured lawn, white fences, and the faint smell of jasmine that always clung to the front porch. When I stepped inside, the air was thick with perfume, laughter, and the clatter of cutlery. "Anna!" My mother greeted me, her arms open, her smile too wide to be real. "It's been so long." I forced a polite smile and hugged her briefly. "It's only been a few weeks, Mom." "Oh, you know how time flies," she said dismissively before turning to Ethan. "Ethan, dear, come in, come in. You look thin. Are you eating well?" He smiled politely. "Plenty, Mrs. Mason." We walked into the dining room, where my sister Lily sat perched at the head of the table like a queen awaiting her coronation. Her fiancé Matt sat beside her, his hand resting proudly on hers. My brother Daniel was already halfway through a drink, lounging in his chair with the smug ease of someone who never had to earn approval. Lily looked up and smirked. Well, look who decided to show up. How was your lonely little anniversary?" The words hit like a slap, but I didn't flinch. Ethan squeezed my hand under the table and I felt my pulse steady. "It was unforgettable," I said simply. She raised a brow. "Unforgettable? Really? Without us?" I smiled. "Especially without you." The table fell silent for a moment. My father cleared his throat awkwardly, trying to redirect the tension. "So how's work, Anna? Still at that small firm?" "Yes, Dad," I said evenly. "Still there." "But we're doing well. Actually, Ethan and I have some news. My mother perked up immediately. News? Don't tell me you're expecting. Lily rolled her eyes dramatically. Of course not, Mom. She'd have told you first. I reached into my purse, my fingers brushing against the smooth envelope I had brought intentionally, not out of spite, but truth. I placed it gently on the table and slid it toward my parents. It's not a baby, I said softly. It's a home. My father frowned, confused. A home? Ethan nodded. We bought a house, I corrected him gently. He bought it for me. It's in my name. The room froze. My mother blinked, my father's jaw tightened, and Lily's smirk faltered for the first time. In your name? My father repeated slowly. Why would he do that? Ethan met his gaze calmly. Because she deserves it. Lily gave a sharp laugh. Wow, that's convenient. Guess we know who wears the pants in this marriage. Lily, my mother hissed, but I could hear the hidden amusement in her tone. I leaned back, calm, collected. You know what's funny? When you forget someone's worth long enough, they start building their own. My father's face hardened. You didn't tell us you were buying a house? You didn't ask, I replied. You were too busy. The air grew heavy. My mother tried to chuckle, waving a dismissive hand. Oh, darling, don't be dramatic. You know we love you. We just get caught up sometimes. Caught up? I repeated quietly. That's one way to describe forgetting your daughter's anniversary. Her smile cracked. We said we were sorry. No, I interrupted gently. You didn't, and that's okay. I don't need it anymore. For a moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the faint ticking of the clock on the wall. Ethan finally broke the silence. Anna has worked hard for years. Harder than most people realize. This house isn't just property. It's proof that she's not defined by neglect. My mother's expression shifted from irritation to guilt, though she tried to mask it. We didn't neglect her. Yes, you did, I said quietly. Maybe not intentionally, but it happened. Every time you praised Lily and ignored my voice. Every time you brushed off my accomplishments. Every time you said later or busy when I needed you most. I kept forgiving it because I thought family was supposed to come first. But I learned something. Love that demands silence isn't love at all. Lily crossed her arms. So what, you're perfect now? You've got a house and suddenly you're above us? I met her gaze evenly. No, I'm not above you. I just finally stopped standing below you. Ethan smiled faintly beside me, proud but quiet. My father sighed, rubbing his temple. You always were dramatic, Anna. I laughed softly. Maybe, but at least now I have my own stage. That ended the conversation. The rest of the dinner was painfully polite, forced laughter, empty small talk, the occasional glare from Lily. When dessert came, I pushed the plate away. My appetite had vanished. When Ethan and I finally stood to leave, my mother followed us to the door. You didn't have to embarrass us, she whispered sharply. I looked at her calm and unflinching. I didn't embarrass you, Mom. The truth did. We stepped outside into the cool night air. The stars hung quietly above the dark roofline of my parents' house. Ethan reached for my hand. You handled that perfectly, he said. I exhaled slowly, the tension slipping from my shoulders. I didn't do it to prove anything. I just needed them to hear it. Once, he smiled. You don't need their approval anymore. No, I said, my voice steady. I really don't. As we drove away, I looked back one last time. Through the dining room window, I saw them. My family, frozen in awkward silence around their polished table, their laughter gone. For years, I had begged to belong at that table. Tonight, I finally walked away from it, and it felt like freedom. When we reached home, Ethan unlocked the door and flipped on the lights. The scent of paint and fresh beginnings welcomed us back. I looked at the deed on the counter again and smiled. That dinner was everything I expected, I murmured. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Meaning? Empty, I said, then kissed his cheek. But necessary. We stood there in the soft light of our new living room, holding each other in silence. Outside, the night stretched vast and endless, a blank page waiting for the life we were about to write together. for the first time in my life, I wasn't the forgotten daughter. I was the woman who had finally learned that sometimes walking away is the loudest way to be heard. 2 weeks had passed since the dinner that had felt more like a reckoning than a reunion. Every word, every look from that night replayed in my mind like a movie I couldn't stop watching. For once, though, it didn't sting, it clarified. The moment I slid that house deed across my parents' table, I'd drawn an invisible line between who I used to be and who I was becoming. Ethan and I spent the following days finishing what we had started, making our new house into a home. The scent of new paint and the faint echo of our laughter replaced the bitterness that once filled my heart. I learned the rhythm of this space, how morning light fell across the living room couch, how the floorboards creaked softly when Ethan walked to the kitchen at dawn, how the air itself felt different here, lighter, freer. One evening, as we hung the last framed photo on the wall, our wedding picture smiling in the sun, Ethan said quietly, "We should celebrate properly this time." I looked at him, puzzled. "Celebrate what?" "Everything," he said with a grin. "Survival, love, freedom, the house, us." I laughed softly. "You mean a housewarming?" "Exactly," he said, stepping closer. "But not with them. This one's just for the people who actually showed up when life got messy." His words warmed me. For the first time, I realized how small but powerful our circle truly was. A few loyal friends, a couple of Ethan's colleagues who'd become like family, and our next-door neighbor, Mrs. Cole, who always brought over baked goods and stories from her late husband. The night of the housewarming arrived sooner than I expected. I wore a deep green dress that made me feel rooted, alive. Ethan strung up soft golden lights along the backyard fence, their glow spilling across the freshly trimmed grass. The smell of grilled food mingled with candle wax and jasmine from the garden. Music drifted from the speakers. Nothing too loud, just mellow acoustic melodies that wrapped the evening in warmth. Guests began to arrive, bringing laughter and clinking glasses. They admired the house, complimented the decor, and toasted to new beginnings. For the first time in years, I looked around and felt surrounded by genuine affection, not forced smiles or backhanded remarks, but real, unfiltered joy. During a lull in the chatter, my friend Mia leaned close and whispered, "I saw your post. Anna, the pictures look beautiful, but, are your parents coming tonight?" I smiled faintly. No, they weren't invited. Her eyebrows lifted slightly, but she didn't question it. She knew enough of my story to understand. "Good," she said simply. "You deserve peace." As the night deepened, Ethan raised a glass and tapped it gently with a fork. "Everyone," he said, his voice calm but full, "thank you for being here tonight. This house means more to us than I can explain. It isn't just a building. It's proof that you can rebuild your life even after people try to make you feel small. It's proof that love can start over." Applause followed, soft but heartfelt. I blinked back tears as he turned toward me and smiled. "And I couldn't have done it without her," he said. "Anna, this house belongs to you because your strength built it." For a moment, time stopped. The air felt heavy with emotion, the kind that doesn't need words. I felt seen, truly seen. Later that night, after everyone had eaten and laughter filled every corner, I slipped inside to grab more wine. That's when I noticed the light on my phone blinking. One missed call, then another, then 3, all from Mom. My heart thudded. Part of me considered ignoring it. But then came the text. "We saw your pictures." "You had a party and didn't invite us?" I stared at the words, my fingers frozen above the screen. Seconds later, the phone buzzed again. This time, a call. I sighed and answered. "Hello?" My mother's voice came through sharp, wounded, and accusing all at once. "You didn't invite us, Anna? After everything we've done for you?" I exhaled slowly, gripping the counter. "Everything you've done for me?" I repeated quietly. "Mom, you ignored our anniversary." "You forgot my day. You forgot me. That's unfair," she snapped. "We were busy. You can't hold one mistake against us forever." "One mistake?" I whispered. Mom, it's been years of small mistakes that piled into one big truth. I stopped mattering to you the day Lily became your favorite project. Her breath caught. That's not true. It is, I said, calmer now. I spent years trying to earn what should have been unconditional. Every time I tried to make you proud, it wasn't enough. When I got promoted, you congratulated Daniel. When I hosted holidays, you left early to go to Lily's. When Ethan and I got married, you complained about the catering. And when our anniversary came, you didn't even call. On the other end, I heard her sniffle, but I couldn't tell if it was guilt or anger. Families fight, Anna. You can't erase blood. I'm not erasing it, I said. I'm just not bleeding for it anymore. There was a long pause. Then, in that old, familiar tone, she sighed. You've changed. You sound ungrateful. Do you think you'd have this life without us? We raised you. Her words triggered something deep, something raw. But I didn't cry this time. I steadied my voice. Yes, you raised me, but Ethan taught me what love actually feels like. Heavy and electric. Then she muttered, Your father's very disappointed. I almost laughed. He's been disappointed in me since I learned to speak for myself. Don't say that, she scolded. I already did, I said softly. And I mean it. Mom, this house isn't just walls and floors. It's what happens when love is built on respect instead of guilt. She started to respond, but I hung up gently, not in anger, in peace. The kind of peace that comes when you finally choose yourself. I stood there for a long moment, breathing in the quiet hum of our home. Ethan appeared at the doorway, his brow furrowed. Everything okay? I nodded slowly. Yeah, I think I just ended something that should have ended years ago. He didn't ask questions. He just pulled me into his arms. Then it's a good night, he whispered. We went back outside. The party continued. Soft laughter, music, the faint sparkle of the city skyline in the distance. I looked around at the people who had shown up, who had chosen to stand beside me without obligation. My chest swelled with gratitude. Hours later, after the guests left and the lights dimmed, Ethan and I sat by the living room window. The city glowed in the distance, the reflection shimmering across our walls. Our walls. Do you regret it? He asked quietly, I thought for a moment. No, I think I finally understand what love is. It's not begging for attention. It's not competing for approval. It's building something real, even if it's small, even if it's quiet. He smiled and took my hand. Then this, he said, gesturing around us, is love. Outside, a breeze rustled the roses we'd planted by the porch. I could almost hear their petals whispering against the night air, soft, persistent, alive. I leaned my head on his shoulder. You know what's strange? I murmured. I used to dream about living in a big house with my family always visiting, filling the rooms with laughter. But now I realize that peace is quieter than laughter, and way more valuable. He kissed the top of my head. You earned it. We sat there for what felt like hours, watching the moon drift higher. Every corner of that house held a story now. Of betrayal, revelation, forgiveness, and finally, freedom. Later that week, I received one last message from my mother. We're sorry. Your father says we should talk. I stared at it for a long time, then placed my phone face down. Some doors don't need to be slammed. They can just quietly close. That night before bed, I walked through the house one last time, touching the walls, the furniture, the framed photos. Each object seemed to hum with energy, not of possession, but of peace. When I reached the window, I paused. The city lights blinked in the distance like small promises. I whispered, You may have ignored our anniversary. But this, I looked around the room, this is my beginning. Ethan joined me at the window, sliding his arm around my waist. Together we stood there, silent and still, the world stretching endlessly beyond our little home. My family's silence had once broken me. Now, it was just background noise, because in the quiet of that house, the one deeded to my name, built on love, and sealed with truth, I wasn't the forgotten daughter anymore. I was the woman who had finally taken her life back.